Welcome everyone to the rapid clash between Praggnanandhaa and Magnus Carlsen. This is going to be a very exciting battle between two of the best players in the world of chess. Clearly Magnus is the GOAT. He's the strongest player on the planet right now in rapid format, and Pragg is someone who's having a great year of 2025. So that's why this clash is so interesting. Also, just before this game or this tournament, it was announced that Pragg and Magnus will be teammates at the Esports World Cup. And Magnus comes with his bottle of water, gets off his jacket, and starts the clock. Pragg thinks for a bit and opens with pawn to d4. Magnus now adjusting all his pieces. What's the opening that he will choose? Generally, all top players are going for these lines with d4, d5 and so on. Will Magnus also do that, or will he go for something else is the big question. Calms himself down. It's 25 minutes plus 10 seconds increment. And he goes g6. Wow, already a fighting decision. Praggnanandhaa takes space in the center with e4. And now will he go knight c3, transposing it into a modern, but he goes c4. Maybe taking the game into King's Indian territory, knight to c3. And if knight f6, we will be in pure King's Indian, but Magnus goes for e5. Remember guys, taking and this endgame is not a good idea to play with Magnus. Knight e2. Calmly, Pragg goes with his knight there. Knight jumps to f6, attacking the pawn on e4, keeping that thing. And f3, now he goes first d5, Pragg, gaining space. And Magnus goes a5, a typical move to get your knight to c5, playing the dark square game. f3 played by Pragg. He wants to play bishop e3, queen d2 and long castle. The knight comes to d7. And here's a plan that black can have potentially. h4 played by Pragg, a good move, because otherwise he could play bishop h6, takes, queen h4 check and take here. Anyway, h5 played by Magnus. And now bishop e3. The idea is clear, queen d2 and long castle. And what is Magnus going to do here? He quickly goes bishop h6 and trades off this dark squared bishop. Magnus is happy with this static position, which is good for him because his central pawns are on dark squares, so he now has the light squared bishop. Meanwhile, white's position has pawns on light squares and the bishop is bit blocked. But knight c1 played, the knight goes to a6. And maybe now Pragg can go knight to d3. He goes with his knight to the center. He wants to maybe play bishop e2 and then long castle. Knight comes to c5. And Pragg long castles here. Will Magnus short castle? I think it's very dangerous to short castle here. Like imagine you short castle, then already I can go g4, hg4, h5, opening up the position. Knight goes to f2. And queen comes out to e7. I think Magnus also preparing long castle. It seems bishop e2 played. And now pawn to f5. He pushes his pawn. And queen comes up to e3. Magnus long castles here. And Pragg quickly plays b3. The plan here is king b2, a3, and maybe if he can manage b4. Nothing like it. Rook goes to f8. And king comes up to b2. He goes rook to g8 with the idea of f4 and g5. Pushes forward. a3 is met g5 now. Takes. Rook takes g5 played by Magnus. And the g2 pawn is quite weak. So Magnus already putting pressure on Praggnanandhaa. Meanwhile, Pragg is thinking hard. He goes rook h2 played here. And the rook comes to g8, putting further pressure down on the g2 point. He goes rook to g1. And pawn comes forward to h4. Big pressure here for Praggnanandhaa, but maybe he can wriggle out of this because Magnus seems to have made a mistake here. Instead of h4, f4 was much better putting pressure here. But Pragg takes it. And now if rook g2, rook g2, rook g2 and rook h8, it's trouble time here on the back rank. So that's why Magnus plays f4. The queen comes back to c1. And already Pragg has won a pawn, but his position is not winning by any sense, or even better, because Magnus has such good compensation. He goes rook g3. Now an attack on the rook here. So maybe rook h2 back makes a lot of sense. And Pragg does go back, rook h2. Magnus goes b6, not a good move. c6 would have been much better, creating play there. b6, and now Pragg is clearly better here. He can go queen d1 to protect f3, because if he goes bishop f1 here, rook takes f3 is possible. Go queen d1, he plays it, and now he can go rook h1, first bishop f1, defend g2, go rook h1 and get your pieces active here. Queen comes up to g7. He goes bishop f1, rook h8, trading now. Important for Magnus to quickly get some pieces off the board perhaps. But Pragg has a clear decisive edge now, a clear extra pawn. How easy is it to convert this against a player like Magnus? Not so simple, but Pragg is someone who believes in himself. And maybe this ideas with knight a2, queen e2, knight d1, calmly, quickly playing here. Queen d2 played. And rook comes back to g6. He goes knight to d3. Slowly and steadily, Praggnanandhaa putting pressure on Magnus. He takes on d3, bishop takes on d3. And now rook to g5 played by Magnus, just improving his position slightly. And queen to f2. If he can get his queen going in, that would be something. But you will see that all the good squares are covered here by the bishop, so the knight cannot jump in. Queen g1, rook h6, trading so that white cannot double down the h file. Takes, and knight to c5. Magnus believes in trading rooks has helped him, and truly it feels so that way. Knight a6. If only he can engineer b4 now, that would be something. He goes bishop d3 and knight to c5, bishop f1 played. Goes queen to g8. And now you want to play b4, but there is knight a4 business, so bishop e2. Maybe Pragg will reroute his bishop to d1. I don't know how exactly to play this. He goes queen d8. Can we enter the position with queen h6 or queen h7? Queen h1 played. He goes queen to g8. Pawn to b4, pushing forward. And knight jumps in. Knight a4 check. Wow, finally Pragg managed to make some headway, takes, bishop takes. And now do we want to take here? Take here. Or do we want to, he closes it down with b5. In a way, this bishop could get trapped here, but who's going to attack it? And in fact, the queen is coming in. Pragg plays queen to g1. Magnus waits here. King comes to c3, and maybe Pragg is coming in with his king somehow. But where exactly? Maybe bishop f1, king d2, king e2 and queen f2. Magnus is not so sure. He's thinking, what is Pragg trying to do here? with this extra pawn? Is there something like maybe he wanted to go bishop b3, but then perhaps a4 and the bishop could get trapped. So he goes king b8, he waits. Bishop d3, he's going king e2 now, and then queen f2. King b7. King e2, so taking control of these two squares, so the queen can now start moving in. Bishop b3 played. And queen h1. Magnus now pushes a4. His plan could very well be to enter via a5 now with his queen. King f1 played. And queen goes back. Pragg is entering in. Queen h4. Maybe with the idea of queen e7. Magnus queen a8. That's the way he's coming in. He's coming in. Pragg has to be careful. Has to be careful here. Queen e1 played, stopping queen a5. And of course, trade of queens is not a good idea for black. Queen h8, king g1, stopping queen from entering. And queen d8 played. Bishop comes back to e2. Queen comes to h8. And queen c1 played. He goes queen h4. Queen comes up to d2. I don't know from where Praggnanandhaa is trying to make progress. Maybe with bishop d1, yeah, to trade the bishops. Here could be an idea. But he goes bishop d3. Magnus is already ready with his next move. King b7, queen f2, offering a trade. If this happens, white should be better, but actually the engine assesses even this as a draw. So that's the margin of draw that black has actually. Queen d8. So Magnus staying in a way where he can move to the king side, also to the queen side. All options open. King f1. Queen h8. And queen comes up to f2. He gives a check. Queen g1. You could not let the queen get in, that's for sure. If the queen would have gotten in here, that would have been game over. So queen a8 trying to come to a5, and I think Pragg would have by now realized that his attempts at making progress are not leading him somewhere. Queen a5. And, offers a trade. Queen goes back. Doesn't offer a trade. Queen c1. Queen goes back, and Pragg goes king d2, queen g8, attacking the g2 pawn. And he's now moving in to attack here. The way in which Magnus is using his queen is quite fun to watch, moving his queen from one corner of the board to another. And this one, it seems they've found a repetition. And a draw has been agreed. Threefold repetition here. Plays king e2 for the arbiter to arrive. Pauses the clock. Calls the arbiter. Says I'm going queen h8. It will be a threefold repetition. And they check. And a draw has been agreed. What a game here. I think Praggnanandhaa managed to definitely put some pressure on Magnus. In fact, Magnus was slightly better out of the opening, but then made a mistake. But Pragg couldn't really convert much, couldn't convert it into a win. And Magnus was super solid at the end. A very fun and fighting game between Pragg and Magnus. This very interesting battle between the two continues.